Hello and welcome to the Bearded Mystic podcast, where we are waking and growing in oneness, and I'm your host, Rahul N Singh. Some of you know me, but if you don't, then I've been a spiritual seeker for over 20 years with a deep interest in non-duality. Thank you for joining today. We will start with a small introduction to Advaita Vedanta and explore this amazing philosophy. Advaita Vedanta is a school of philosophy in Hinduism. It is one of the popular schools in Indian thought, and most of all in Sanatana Dharma. It is my personal favorite, and it is the one philosophy that makes the most sense to me. It can be loosely translated as without duality, or popularly known as non-duality. Advaita is also translated as not two. So when did Advaita Vedanta begin? Well, we will find the whispers of this non-dual philosophy in the Upanishads, declared by the many rishis, further emphasized in the Bhagavad Gita by Sri Krishna, and then explored further in the Brahma Sutras through very terse aphorisms. There are radical Advaita texts like the Ribu Gita, Avadut Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, and Yog Vashisht, and I warn you that these are for very advanced seekers who have understood the key concepts of Advaita. Remember, Advaita is not about being against duality, for that would be an acceptance of duality as a reality. What Advaita says is that duality is an appearance of the non-dual being or existence itself. One of the main figures of this school is Adi Shankara. He was not only a great orator and debater, but a great writer too. His commentaries on the three main texts that was mentioned before, along with different songs and prayers, are all worth reading and understanding. Adi Shankara's grand vision was to ensure that we have a foundation of understanding before we can even dive deep into the texts like the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads. Hence, he wrote foundational texts like Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh, Aparokshanabhuti, etc. It is recommended that you study the foundational texts before you read the three main scriptures like the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutras. This episode will go into some key concepts, and we will have a poem and answer an audience question which you can submit to me to my email beardedmysticpodcast@gmail.com. Advaita Vedanta philosophy makes sense to me because it matches my own experience. In fact, it doesn't ask me to believe in anything. I cannot doubt my own awareness, my own consciousness. And this is the beginning of when we accept the invitation to understand Advaita or non-duality. Let's discuss some exciting concepts within Advaita Vedanta and how they make sense to us on an experiential level. We will start today's episode with the nature of Brahman and Atman. What we know as the Atma is one and the very same as Brahman. Contrary to popular belief, they are not different. Now, you must be wondering what Brahman is and what Atma is, but I will discuss Brahman in a bit. Let's start with the Atma. Now, you must have heard, and it is rather a widespread belief, that we have an Atma, that we have an individual soul. Sometimes we even go as far as to say, I am a soul, or I am the Atma. So what is the truth in this actual matter? Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, we often see that the Atman is synonymous with Brahman, or sometimes the Atma can be also referred to as the mind as well. This also happens in the Upanishads, and this is incredibly important for us to understand how this very term, Atma, is hugely dependent on the context of the shloka. This Atma can also be referred to as a Jiva Atma, as we all have a Jiv. Sometimes the word Atma is joined. So in a future episode, we will go deep into what the Jiv is. So to emphasize the individuality of this essence, it is referred to as the Jiva Atma. But Advaita guides us to see that the Atma at its core is nothing but Brahman itself. So now, does this mean we must discover what is Brahman? Brahman is known to be Satchit Ekam Brahma. Sat means existence, Chid means awareness or consciousness, Ekam means non-dual or oneness, Brahm means pervading everywhere or vastness. Also, Brahman is famously known as Satchitananda, meaning it is existence, consciousness, and bliss. Brahman can be pointed to, but not directly known through knowledge alone, yet it is discovered simply through our first-hand experience. The fact that I'm aware of speaking to you and I'm aware that you are listening to me right now. I'm aware of the microphone and the space of the room around me. This is Brahman experiencing itself through these objects, hence the Mahavakya, a great saying of the Upanishad. Aham Brahmasmi. Hence it is extremely accessible and available to any human, and it's just not with me, it's also with you. I often refer to Brahman because of its nature of formlessness, as it is not made of any object or content. And most of the time I translate it as formless awareness or formless consciousness. And this has been to ensure that we understand that it is awareness, and before the mind can do anything with it, it is formless, so it cannot objectify it. Remember, formlessness cannot be an object at all. Hence it is supreme. Brahman is eternal because it has no beginning nor an end. If you had to introspect into awareness, you will not arrive at the end of any direction you go. You may do this for eternity, but no end will be found, and no beginning will be discovered. It is infinite because it is the only existence. Everything we see is Maya or an illusion, and Maya is here only because of Brahman. However, this illusion traps us because we believe we are a separate individual, but when we understand our inherent oneness, this Maya is none other than Brahman. It is Nirgun, meaning this divinity is beyond any attributes, concepts, qualities and forms. It is the purest of the pure, the clearest of the clear, transcendent of all dualities and distinctions. So to experience the fullness of the Atma, all we need to do is observe and take notice of the observer. Then we enter the field of the one that is aware. This is Brahman, when it is experienced beyond words, concepts, ideas, and images. The oneness is the only reality as we recognize because it is as it is. Hence, I often refer to it as formless awareness. Now, the Jiva Atma and Brahman are identical, and how so? Like the sun and the sun rays are one and the same. The gold and the bracelet is one and the same. The ocean and the wave are one and the same. Without the gold, the bracelet has no existence. Likewise, without Brahman, the Atma cannot have an individualized experience. Hence, it cannot become a wave or a bracelet. The Atma has access to individually experience itself through the human body and mind. And as we will discover, the Atman can also sometimes trap itself into thinking that it is what it is not, like the body and mind, through the power of Maya, and this is the birth of ignorance. Just like when a wave crashes onto the shore and then it turns back upon itself and dissolves back into the ocean. Similarly, when the Atman realizes its true nature as Brahman, it dissolves itself into the infinite consciousness of Brahman, and that is what true surrender is. So let's now go into what the illusion of Maya is. If there is one mystery that has baffled the minds of many, including mine, it is Maya itself. The interesting aspect to this whole thing is that Maya is the most mysterious aspect of Brahman. We can explain everything, even consciousness somewhat, but when it comes to Maya, then it's a struggle. Like, why do we have Maya? Why is this illusion so captivating that we see it as the only reality? How does it trap us into the idea that life is simply just about eating, drinking, and being merry? How does it allow us to bypass the true meaning and purpose of life? Many mystics have expressed that it is absolute that you can know God. But Maya, you may never know. Creation may never be explained to your or my expectations, and this is proven with the hymn of creation in the Rig Veda, the Nasidya Sukta. And I'm going to use a translation by Akhilesh Sabharwal, and it goes like this. Then, before the beginning, there was neither existence nor non-existence. There was no sky, nor the realm of space, or anything beyond that. What stirred, where, in whose protection, and who was responsible? There was neither death nor immortality then. There was no night or day. That one breathed, windless, by its own impulse. Other than that one's breath, there was nothing beyond. When the universe began, at first, there was darkness, hidden by darkness. There was endless water with no distinguishing marks. The water was covered by the void, and then the one came into being by the force of heat. But is that what happened? Who really knows? Who here among the reciters will proclaim it as true? Where did this creation happen? Do even the gods know? The gods or the devas came after the creation of this universe. Who then knows whence it has arisen? Whether the one's will created it, or whether the one was mute. Perhaps the universe formed itself, or perhaps it did not. Only the one who is its overseer in the highest heaven knows. Only the one knows, or perhaps even the one does not know. The sukta just goes to show how any answer may not be good enough, because we would have to ask the creator, and then the question of whether the creator knows, well, that is it. But know one thing, it can be seen right here in that sukta that awareness of all these elements of creation is present, and even the awareness of whether the creator knows it created something, or perhaps it does know or does not know. Still awareness remains. Is creation even important for awareness? Not really. But let's get back to Maya, because we do not want to upset it at all. So Maya is basically what causes ignorance. For example, this body is Maya, because the power of Maya tells me that this is who I am. Then I have another added layer here, because that's the mind. It takes me into the movement of likes and dislikes. I go towards that which attracts me, and I move away from that which I find repulsive. It is my thoughts and feelings. It is the pain and the joy related to the physical experiences of the body. The very power, or Shakti, makes me believe that I am this body and mind, and that is Maya, controlling the narrative. Now, what is aware of the mind? What is aware of the body? It is Brahman, or formless consciousness, formless awareness. Therefore, body and mind are both objects and belong to Maya. It is easier for the body and mind to be attuned to something that is an object, and it can easily bypass the subject, which is formless awareness. When we think and feel we are this body and mind, then it is Maya. When we know that this body and mind is not who we are, but what we use, then it is existence, which is the vastness and oneness of Brahman. I cannot objectify consciousness at all. I cannot inquire into consciousness like it is some idea or concept. It is the very reason I can experience this sound. It is the very reason I can watch something, to observe something. Subtle and physical, like thought and say the sun. The power of Maya hides the evident knowledge that we are consciousness. It traps us in desires, and we spend our lives chasing them, either getting what we want and experience transitory happiness, or getting angry because we didn't get what we wanted. This leads us to the fear of missing out, and ultimately dissatisfaction in life. The more our ignorance deepens, the more we believe the body and mind as our identity. And there we find that Maya keeps us away from understanding that our true nature is Brahman, until we question it one day through an intense inquiry. This inquiry has to be filled with the absence of all desires apart from the desire for freedom, for mukti, meaning to know who we truly are. Maya even makes us believe we are separate to others and from others, and hides this very apparent oneness and interconnectedness in the whole of existence. This only makes us more selfish, more individual, more greedy, seeking power over others because we want to be the best and others to be behind us, to be lower than us. Yet this only creates more ignorance and more delusion. And today, we find even spiritual gurus talking about being the best version of you. You're not an app, nor are you some software. You are consciousness, having a human body with a mind that can intellectualize that it is beyond the physical. Yes, literally the mind can defeat itself by itself. The way is to simply observe without any interference. And okay, you can say it is easier said than done, if you really want to believe that. You see, Maya is like a dream. We experience our dreams as real, like while we are dreaming. But as soon as we wake up, we realize that our dreams are not real. They were just the imagination of the mind. And even if I dream that I am a billionaire, it doesn't mean that once I awaken and I wake up into the waking world, I will be a billionaire. The dream world never slips into the waking world. Likewise, we are formless awareness, and this body, mind, and material existence is a dream imposed on the ever-awakened one by Maya. This is why it is worth clarifying that Maya is mithya and not asat. Maya will still exist even after Jivan Mukti, but this Maya doesn't exist in the dream world. So our waking world never takes over the dream world, hence it is mithya. Maya is not asat. It has an existence on a transactional level. Hence Maya creates the illusion of the world, which is ultimately nothing but a manifestation of Brahman. The world is like images on a movie screen. The images on the screen appear to be real, but they are just projections of light. Similarly, the world appears to be real, but it is just a projection upon Brahman, or it is the light of Brahman that gives that projection. So just remember that no matter what is projected on the screen, whether it is love or murder, the screen never falls in love, nor does it get killed or harmed. Once the projector turns off, the screen remains unaffected. Fundamentally, Brahman is a screen, Brahman is a projector, Brahman is the image. It is all one. This is how the enlightened person will view the world. Maya is persuasive, but it is not invincible. With self-inquiry and devotion, we can overcome Maya's influence and realize our true nature as consciousness. So the path to liberation is through self-inquiry and devotion. One of the most important paths in spirituality that seems to be very effective today is self-inquiry. And don't get fooled into thinking it's something simple. It's not about me going into a room and begin asking in a chant-like manner, who am I, who am I, who am I? This self-inquiry has to be a careful and very precise introspection into what is asking the question rather than the question itself. The question is not as important than the one who is asking the question. The beauty here is that a guru carefully guides us into discovering that awareness. And that sits right behind the inquiry. This awareness sits right behind it. And this is a very simple practice, but it is extremely subtle. We can, through thought, discover awareness, but that is still a thought. We have to go beyond the thought and rest in the being, where not a single word is mentioned or even uttered. You enter into the flow of existence, and it is tangible, yet it cannot be touched. Basically, in this process, we negate whatever is an object to our awareness, and we internally say that we are not this because it is an object. For example, I cannot be my body because I am aware of it. I am aware of my thoughts, so I cannot be my thoughts. I am aware of my emotions, so I cannot be my emotions. I am aware of my breath, so I cannot be breath or prana. We negate until there is nothing left to negate. And once we are there, we have to rest in this beingness that is intuitively felt, because that is simply all that is. It is the formless of everything. This process can reach quicker results in numerous ways. One is that it can be aided by reading the scriptures from the beginner level to the deeper and more radical texts. Obviously, I would recommend that we start with something like Atma Bodh or Aparokshanubhuti before we get into the more radical texts like the Ashtavakra Gita, which is right behind me, or even Yog Vashisht. There are two scriptures that I feel can be read at any time, regardless of what level you feel you are at in spirituality. And they are the Bhagavad Gita. And the next one, although not strictly Vedanta, it shows you how to live in the flow of Brahman, and that is the Tao Te Ching. Another way, and this is possibly an important one, but also one to take a bit of caution with, that is, we must at some point learn spirituality with a guru. And this is most necessary for self-inquiry. The reason for this is that it is very easy for self-inquiry to become mental gymnastics. We can fall under the illusion that there is nothing left to achieve. But Advaita or non-duality does not ignore that work is needed even after enlightenment. Psychologically, we have to catch up, and the Guru's teachings can be the very precision we need. The guidance can take us leaps and bounds, and as long as we surrender our hearts to the Guru, but still maintain and remain faithful to our practice of self-inquiry, observing our desires and vasanas but not getting pulled by them, by having sense restraint and not going towards whatever the senses take us towards, we will achieve freedom very quickly. The other way is to go through devotion, which is the path of love, also commonly known as bhakti. Those of you who have followed the podcast from the very beginning know that Nirgun Bhakti is the practice we hold very dearly. In this manner we chant the names of Brahman, but with a twist. We become aware of formless awareness. We become aware of Brahman. And in that awareness, we feel this deep level of reverence and love. When one reaches that oneness, then there is this feeling of ecstasy and bliss. And do not be surprised if you find your eyes filled with tears. We may worship our Guru as the embodiment of Brahman, and that is absolutely fine. We can worship any Devi or Devta. That's absolutely fine. The only issue here is that we can end up worshipping the Guru's or even the Devi Devta's physical form, or murti, more than is necessary. Remember the saying, don't look at the finger pointing to the moon. The whole point is to look at the moon, or in this case, Brahman, or awareness, and not at the finger or the physical form of the Guru or the Devi and Devta. We may sing bhajans praising the Supreme One, which lifts the spirit and creates a strong, intense desire to meet the object of our devotion, eventually leading us to the subject, to the oneness, to the awareness of the divine within. You see, our state of being is that wherever we look, there is nothing but what we are devoted to. For example, we find Brahman in everything, and we are consumed by our love for Brahman. Wherever we look, we feel devotional love towards our beloved, and in this case, it is Brahman. If we walk on our path of devotion sincerely, we can integrate this world and this Brahman and see it as a completely integrated fullness. The formless is in all the forms, and all the forms are nothing but the formless. In this realization, our devotion then becomes karma yoga, because we serve all as we see nothing but Brahman. Whatever can be said about both paths of jnana and bhakti, the main thing is just to practice, practice and practice. Don't give up, and remember to be sincere. I would like to invite you to reflect on your own understanding of Advaita Vedanta in the comments here on YouTube or on Spotify, or you can write me an email at beardedmysticpodcast@gmail.com. Tell me your views, write them in the comments, like this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. So I've written a poem, and here's the poem. Life has been one dualistic ride, from one lifetime to another. I have worn many bodies, entertained many minds, yet something reminds me that they are all one, experiencing myself. One day I met my master, who asked a fundamental question that shook the foundations of my already established and wonderful life. Who are you? Who are you? And I couldn't give an answer, because I know Rahul will not suffice. Forget it being good for my guru, it just didn't sound right to me. I spent moments, minutes, hours on that sacred question, who am I? Then my master one day gave me a clue, saying nonchalantly, you are the very name you chant. And in that very moment, my head went spinning, the whole universe swirling into formlessness, bursting with more forms than it could deal with. Yet it all emanated from the one, and no form ever felt separated. And here I am going back to the beginning of eternity that is lost in the loop of timelessness. So now we move to the audience question, and the question is, if everything is Brahman, then what is the point of doing anything? You see, we have a body and mind, and they are meant to be utilized. They are tools. We could say that they are simply gifts that we have on loan. Just like with anything we rent, we take care of it because we know we have to return it. Likewise, we look after our body, we maintain it well, and we look after our mind and keep our thoughts calm and collected as much as possible. Now, some cynic may turn around to me and say, isn't the body and mind Brahman, so why should we do anything? I can just sit down and just chant and think that I am Brahman. And this is a very immature way of thinking. One, it is impossible for anyone to have the focus and attention to stay on awareness until it is revealed as our own true nature. Our nature is that we must be doing some activity. We cannot sit still and remember that even meditation is an activity that we do. So the body and mind has to be utilized for the greater purpose, and our discernment is absolutely important here to understand what the best use of our body and mind is. The difference is that when we understand that there is only Brahman and that we are this one, we must act and think differently. Then we need to utilize our vivek, our discernment, and that guides us to do the actions that benefit the majority, and we lead a life that is with compassion. You could even say that it is lived for all instead of just the individual me. We ultimately know that Brahman is the doer, so we go beyond profit and loss, happiness and sadness, reward and punishment, good and bad, all the pairs of opposites. And there is this subtle feeling we get when we realize that every action that we're doing is beyond our control, and the appearance of apparently making a decision has already been made. Our so-called choices of actions are limited based upon our upbringing, our personality, our surroundings, like the community we're in, the family, the religion that we're born into. Hence, whatever we think we have conducted as an action, we must actually surrender those very actions. So when we surrender our karma, our actions, who is doing this? It is none other than Brahman, and not me or you as the individual self. And the Bhagavad Gita makes this very clear in chapter 3, verse 19. The point, old friend, and this is very important, is to do your worldly duty, but do it without any attachment to it or desire for its fruits. Keep your mind always on the self. Make it as automatic as your breath or heartbeat. This is the way to reach the supreme goal, which is to merge into Brahman. You see, when we act with the freedom of non-attachment to the rewards, we can joyfully act and surrender to the divine, to Brahman, because whatever the effects our actions have, we know the cause is none other than the one acting within us. In fact, subtly, what happens, we always consciously choose the better option, the higher ground, because our discernment has been utilized, our vivek has been utilized, it's been sharpened, as well as our awareness that there is nothing but the one. When they combine, this action will always be great for all, and the one that causes the least amount of harm. Along with us consciously living, knowing that we are the non-doer, this brings in a unique way of creating and sometimes acting spontaneously to what is rather than what we want it to be. We are simply Brahman expressing itself through the body and mind that we are fortunate to be looking after. After all, Om Tat Sat. All this is Brahman. So now we reach the end of the episode, and what we have grasped here is that the individual soul is none other than Brahman. Maya is none other than the physical manifestation and subtle manifestation of the unmanifest. It is there for us to enjoy, but not to be consumed by. There are two ways to transcend the ignorance that we are separate from Brahman or God, or that we have a different soul from everyone else. One is through self-inquiry, as taught by the sages, and they called it neti neti, by saying not this, to whatever changes or modifies or decays or dies until we get to that Brahman, which is that changeless, formless awareness that has been with us all the time, aware of everything. The other path is the one of devotion, by using love towards our Guru, towards wisdom, towards Brahman, we eventually become the object that we love and adore. Most of all, in both paths, it is essential to read and understand the scriptures, and sharpen our discernment of the real and the unreal, by restraining our senses, by making sure they don't chase whatever they want to go towards. And I would like to also mention that it is very important that we have in our mind the goal, the purpose to go towards Jivan Mukti, towards liberation while we're alive, towards freedom while we're alive. And I would like to thank you for listening to this episode, and please do subscribe to the podcast. I'm your host, Rahul N Singh of the Bearded Mystic Podcast, and until next time, take care and namaste.